The morning sun peeked through the windows of Chicago General Hospital's Rehabilitation Center as Sarah Jenkins hurried through the corridors. Her colorful scrubs and comfortable shoes made soft squeaking sounds against the clean floor as she walked. At 32 years old, Sarah had become one of the most respected nurse practitioners in the facility, known for her gentle touch and caring heart. This Monday morning seemed like any other until Sarah reached room 405. The patient file in her hands showed a new name: Marcus Thompson, 35 years old, paralyzed from the waist down. As she pushed open the door, she didn't expect the sound that greeted her: warm, genuine laughter. Marcus sat in his wheelchair near the window, talking on his phone while typing on a laptop balanced on a portable desk. His dark blue sweater looked neat against his wheelchair, and his eyes sparkled with joy as he discussed what seemed to be a complex computer problem with someone on the other end of the call. "I'll send you the corrected code in 5 minutes," he said, ending his call. Then he looked up and noticed Sarah standing there. "Oh, I'm sorry. I hope I wasn't too loud." Sarah smiled and shook her head. "Not at all. It's actually nice to hear someone laughing on a Monday morning. I'm Sarah Jenkins, your new nurse practitioner." As she checked his vital signs, they began to talk. Sarah learned that Marcus worked as a senior software engineer for a major tech company. The car accident 3 years ago hadn't stopped him from continuing his career. He now worked remotely, solving complex problems and leading a team of developers. "Most people expect me to be sad or angry all the time," Marcus said, watching as Sarah checked his blood pressure. "But what good would that do? Life gave me lemons, so I learned to code better lemonade apps." His joke made Sarah laugh out loud, something she rarely did while working. There was something special about Marcus. Perhaps it was the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled, or how he spoke about his work with such passion despite his circumstances. During their conversation, a young nurse rushed in with an urgent question about another patient. Sarah watched in amazement as Marcus quickly offered a solution to the scheduling conflict the nurse mentioned. His mind worked fast, finding creative ways to solve problems. "You should come work in hospital administration," Sarah joked after the nurse left. "We could use someone with your problem-solving skills." "Only if they let me install racing stripes on all the wheelchairs," Marcus replied with a grin. "Got to make this place more exciting, right?" As Sarah completed her checks, they talked about their lives. Marcus shared stories about growing up in Boston, his love for jazz music, and his dreams of creating accessible technology for people with disabilities. Sarah found herself sharing, too, about her childhood in Chicago's South Side, her struggle through nursing school while working 2 jobs, and her passion for helping others. Time flew by faster than usual. Sarah had to force herself to leave the room when her pager beeped with another patient's needs. As she turned to go, Marcus called out, "Same time tomorrow?" "Actually, I rotate between different floors," Sarah explained, feeling an unexpected disappointment. "But I'll be back next Monday." "I'll mark my calendar then," Marcus said with a warm smile. "Maybe by next week, I'll have those racing stripes installed." Walking out of room 405, Sarah felt different. In just one meeting, Marcus had shown her that disability didn't define a person. His intelligence, humor, and positive attitude shined brighter than any limitations his wheelchair represented. Throughout the rest of her day, Sarah found herself thinking about Marcus's laughing eyes and quick wit. She had met many patients over her years of nursing, but something about this encounter felt special. Little did she know that this routine Monday morning checkup would be the beginning of a story that would change both their lives forever. As she drove home that evening, Sarah realized she was looking forward to next Monday more than she probably should. Maybe, just maybe, room 405 would bring more unexpected joy into her life. Over the next few months, Sarah found herself looking forward to her Monday morning visits with Marcus more than any other part of her week. She started bringing 2 cups of coffee during her rounds, one for herself and one for him, just the way he liked it, with a splash of cream and no sugar. However, not everyone shared her growing happiness. One evening, during their weekly family dinner, Sarah's mother, Patricia, voiced her concerns. "Baby girl, I heard from Jackie at church that you've been spending time with one of your patients," she said, putting down her fork. "A disabled man?" Sarah took a deep breath. "His name is Marcus, Mom, and yes, we've been spending time together outside the hospital." She didn't mention that they had already gone on 3 dinner dates, or that Marcus had taught her how to play chess during their lunch breaks. I just don't want life to be harder for you than it needs to be, Patricia said softly. Being a black woman in this world is already challenging enough. Sarah's younger sister, Tanya, jumped in. Mom, it's the 21st century. And from what Sarah's told me, Marcus sounds amazing. Meanwhile, Marcus faced his own battles. During one of their evening video calls, he opened up to Sarah about his struggles. My best friend Tom asked me yesterday if I was being fair to you, he said, his voice heavy with emotion. He thinks I can't give you the life you deserve. Sarah watched Marcus's face on her phone screen, wishing she could reach through and hold his hand. And what do you think? She asked. I think. Marcus paused, adjusting his position in his wheelchair. I think that I'm falling in love with you, Sarah, but sometimes, when I see you walking beside my wheelchair in public, I notice the looks people give us. Some are curious, some are pitying, and some just don't understand. Let them look, Sarah replied firmly. Because what I see when I look at you is a brilliant man who makes me laugh, challenges me to think differently, and cares more deeply than anyone I've ever known. Their relationship grew stronger despite the challenges. Marcus showed Sarah that his disability didn't stop him from living life fully. He took her to adaptive sports games where he played wheelchair basketball, surprising her with his skill and athleticism. On weekends, they explored wheelchair-accessible trails in local parks, and Marcus taught Sarah about the latest technology he was developing to help others with disabilities. Sarah's co-workers at the hospital had mixed reactions. Some nurses whispered behind her back, questioning her choices, but her friend Lisa, another nurse practitioner, defended her fiercely. Have you seen how Sarah glows these days? Lisa would say to anyone who dared to criticize. That's what happens when you find real love. One rainy evening, as they sat in Marcus's adapted van after a movie, he turned to Sarah with serious eyes. You know, when I had my accident 3 years ago, I thought my life was over. I never imagined I could feel this happy again. Sarah reached for his hand. Life has a funny way of surprising us. Speaking of surprises, Marcus said, pulling out 2 tickets from his jacket pocket. How would you like to meet my parents? They're celebrating their 40th anniversary next month in Boston. Sarah's heart skipped a beat. Meeting his parents was a big step, but she felt ready. I'd love to, she said, smiling. As they drove home that night, Sarah thought about how much her life had changed since that first Monday morning in room 405. The judgmental stares from strangers didn't bother her anymore. Her mother was slowly coming around, especially after Marcus fixed her computer remotely during a crisis with her online business. What started as an unexpected meeting had blossomed into something beautiful and real. Their love story wasn't traditional, but it was uniquely theirs. Together, they were breaking through barriers, proving that love truly had no limitations. That night, as Sarah lay in bed, she realized something important. Sometimes the biggest obstacles in life weren't physical barriers, but the mental ones people built in their minds. And with Marcus, she was learning to break through all of them, one day at a time. The Chicago lakefront sparkled under the setting sun as Marcus guided his wheelchair along the smooth path of Navy Pier. Sarah walked beside him, enjoying the cool autumn breeze. They had just finished dinner at their favorite restaurant, where they had celebrated their 1-year dating anniversary. Remember when we first came here? Sarah asked, looking at the waves hitting the shore. You told me all about the computer program you were designing. Marcus smiled mysteriously. Actually, I've been working on a special project these past few months. Something I haven't told you about. Sarah raised her eyebrows with curiosity. Marcus was usually open about his work, especially with her. Before she could ask more questions, he steered his wheelchair toward a quiet spot overlooking the lake. Sarah, Marcus said, pressing a button on his wheelchair's armrest. I've always promised to be honest with you about my limitations, but also about my determination to overcome them. To Sarah's amazement, Marcus's wheelchair began to transform. A hidden mechanism whirred softly as the chair slowly raised him into a standing position, supported by secure braces. He had modified his wheelchair with a standing mechanism he designed himself. I wanted to do this the right way, Marcus said, his voice slightly shaky with emotion. Now at eye level with Sarah, he reached into his jacket pocket. My disability has taught me that life doesn't always go as planned, but sometimes it gives us something even more beautiful than we imagined. Sarah's heart began to race as she realized what was happening. Tears formed in her eyes as Marcus continued speaking. You walked into room 405 that Monday morning and changed my whole world. You saw past my wheelchair and into my heart. You stood by me when others doubted us, and you showed me that love has no boundaries. Marcus pressed another button, and with the help of his modified wheelchair support system, he carefully lowered himself to one knee. The mechanism worked perfectly, just as he had practiced dozens of times in his workshop. Sarah Jenkins, he said, opening a small velvet box to reveal a beautiful ring with a sapphire stone, her favorite color. Will you marry me? Sarah couldn't hold back her tears. She knelt down beside him, not caring about her dress touching the ground. Yes, she whispered, then louder, yes, yes, yes. A small crowd had gathered around them, and people started clapping and cheering. An elderly couple nearby wiped tears from their eyes, and a group of teenagers recorded the moment on their phones, captured by the beauty of the scene. As Marcus slipped the ring onto Sarah's finger, he explained, I've been working on this standing mechanism for months. I wanted to propose to you properly, on one knee, just like you deserve. Sarah touched his face gently. Marcus Thompson, you amazing man, you didn't need to stand to make this moment perfect. But the fact that you created this just for this moment, that's just who you are. Always thinking of ways to make our love story even more special. Marcus pressed the button to return to his seated position, and Sarah sat in his lap. Something she often did when they were alone. Together, they watched the sun set over Lake Michigan, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and pink. That evening, they called their families to share the news. Sarah's mother, who had grown to love Marcus over the past year, cried happy tears. Marcus's parents immediately started discussing wedding venues that would be fully accessible. As they drove home later, Sarah kept looking at her ring, still amazed by how the evening had unfolded. I can't believe you kept that standing mechanism a secret from me all this time, she said. Marcus grinned. Well, I had to have some surprises left. Besides, this is just the beginning of our story. Wait until you see what I'm planning for the wedding. Sarah leaned over and kissed his cheek at a red light. In that moment, she knew that while their love story might not be conventional, it was more magical than any fairy tale she had ever read. Together, they had proven that true love knows no barriers, and the greatest achievements come from the heart. The months following their engagement flew by in a whirlwind of planning and preparation. Sarah and Marcus sat in their favorite coffee shop, surrounded by wedding magazines, venue brochures, and Sarah's trusted planning notebook. The challenge wasn't just organizing a wedding, it was creating a celebration that would be perfect for both of them. What about the Crystal Gardens? Sarah asked, showing Marcus pictures on her tablet. They said they could install temporary ramps, and the space is wide enough for easy movement. Marcus sipped his coffee thoughtfully. It's beautiful, but I've been thinking, what if we did something different? He pulled out his laptop and showed Sarah a website. Look at this place, the Modern Grove. It's a new venue that was designed to be completely accessible from the ground up. No temporary ramps needed. Sarah's eyes lit up as she scrolled through the pictures. The venue had elegant wide doorways, smooth floors perfect for wheels, and a beautiful outdoor garden with paved paths. Marcus, it's perfect. Their families got involved in the planning too. One Sunday afternoon, both families gathered at Sarah's parents' house to discuss wedding traditions. Sarah's mother Patricia brought out old family photos, showing Sarah the traditional African head wrap that generations of women in their family had worn on their wedding day. We can adjust it to match your dress, baby, Patricia said, her eyes warm with acceptance as she smiled at Marcus. Her initial doubts about their relationship had melted away months ago. Marcus's mother, Eleanor, shared their family's tradition of having the couple write their own vows. Though I must say, she added with a laugh, Marcus has always had a way with computers, not necessarily with words. Don't worry about that, Marcus winked at Sarah. I've been practicing. I might even write a computer program to help me deliver them perfectly. The guest list grew longer as they included all the people who had supported their journey. There was Lisa from the hospital, who had defended their relationship from the beginning. Tom, Marcus's best friend, who had changed his mind after seeing their love grow stronger each day. Even Jackie from Sarah's mom's church, who had once gossiped about them, was now volunteering to help with the decorations. One of the most touching moments came when Marcus showed Sarah his special project for the ceremony. He had been working with his tech team to create an innovative walking assistance device. "It's not ready yet," he explained, showing her the designs. "But by our wedding day, I hope to stand with you during our vows. Not because I need to, but because I want to share that moment with you eye to eye." Sarah hugged him tight. "Standing or sitting, you're the man I want to spend my life with, but I love that you're always thinking of ways to make our day even more special." They decided to blend their different backgrounds into every aspect of the celebration. The menu would feature both soul food favorites from Sarah's family recipes and classical Boston dishes from Marcus's side. The music playlist would mix Sarah's favorite R&B songs with Marcus's beloved jazz numbers. For their wedding favors, they chose something meaningful: small silver pins shaped like intertwined hearts, along with donations in each guest's name to organizations supporting both spinal cord research and racial equality initiatives. As the wedding day drew closer, Sarah and Marcus spent an evening in their newly purchased accessible home, going through their final checklist. The house was a perfect blend of their styles, with wide doorways, smart home features Marcus had installed, and warm, cozy touches Sarah had added. "Can you believe we're getting married in 2 weeks?" Sarah asked, curled up on their specially chosen comfortable couch. Marcus moved his wheelchair closer and took her hand. "I can't wait, though I have one more surprise planned for our wedding day." "Another surprise?" Sarah raised her eyebrows. "You and your surprises. Should I be worried?" Marcus just smiled mysteriously. "Let's just say that our drive home from the wedding might be the most memorable car ride of your life." Little did Sarah know that Marcus was keeping the biggest surprise of all under wraps, one that would change their lives forever. The morning of the wedding arrived with perfect weather, sunshine streaming through fluffy white clouds and a gentle breeze carrying the scent of spring flowers. At the Modern Grove venue, everything was ready. The accessible paths were decorated with arches of white and blue flowers, and guests were starting to arrive. In the bridal suite, Sarah sat in front of a large mirror as her mother carefully arranged the traditional African head wrap, its blue and gold patterns matching Sarah's bouquet. Her wedding dress was a beautiful creation with delicate lace sleeves and a flowing skirt that would look perfect whether she was walking down the aisle or sitting in Marcus's lap during their first dance. "You look like an angel, baby," Patricia said, wiping tears from her eyes. Sarah's sister Tanya, serving as maid of honor, nodded in agreement as she helped adjust the wrap. Meanwhile, in the groom's room, Marcus was getting ready with help from his best man, Tom. His custom-tailored suit fit perfectly, designed to look elegant whether he was sitting or using his standing mechanism. His hands trembled slightly as he adjusted his blue tie, not from nerves about getting married, but from excitement about the surprise he had planned for later. "Everything's ready," Tom assured him, checking his phone. "The doctors confirmed it this morning. Are you sure you want to wait until after the ceremony?" Marcus nodded firmly. "Today is about our love, not about any possible medical breakthroughs. I want Sarah to marry me exactly as I am." The ceremony space looked magical. Wide aisles allowed easy movement for Marcus's wheelchair, and the altar area had been specially designed with a subtle built-in ramp. Guests filled the seats, representing both families and all the friends who had supported their journey. When the music started, everyone turned to watch the bridal party enter. Sarah's young niece came first, spreading rose petals along the accessible path. Then came Tanya and the other bridesmaids, wearing flowing dresses in deep blue. Finally, the traditional wedding march began. Sarah appeared at the entrance with her father, and Marcus felt his heart skip a beat. She looked radiant, the African head wrap adding a regal touch to her bridal outfit. Her smile lit up the entire venue as she walked toward him. As planned, when Sarah reached the altar, Marcus pressed the button on his wheelchair. The standing mechanism activated smoothly, raising him to his feet as guests gasped in appreciation. Sarah's eyes filled with tears of joy seeing him stand to greet her. "Hi, beautiful," he whispered as she reached him. The ceremony was a perfect blend of both their backgrounds. They included traditional African-American wedding rituals that Sarah's family had practiced for generations, along with personal touches that represented their unique love story. Instead of lighting a unity candle, they had created a unity code, typing a simple program together that, when activated, caused all the venue's lights to shine in their wedding colors. When it came time for the vows, Marcus surprised everyone by speaking without notes. Sarah, you entered my life like a ray of sunshine in room 405. You saw me, not my wheelchair. You loved me, not despite my challenges, but including them as part of who I am. I promise to spend every day making you as happy as you've made me. Sarah's vows were equally touching. Marcus, you've shown me that love has no limitations. Your strength, your brilliance, and your heart amaze me every day. I promise to be your partner in all of life's adventures, to face every challenge together, and to celebrate every victory by your side. After they were pronounced husband and wife, Marcus lowered his chair and pulled Sarah onto his lap for their first kiss as a married couple. The guests erupted in cheers and applause. The celebration that followed was joyous. They had their first dance with Sarah perched on Marcus's lap as he expertly spun his wheelchair to the music. The dance floor stayed full all evening, with guests celebrating the power of their love. As the reception neared its end, Marcus gathered his courage. Soon, they would leave for their drive home, and he would share the news that could change everything. Looking at his new wife's radiant smile, he knew that no matter what happened with his medical treatment, their love would only grow stronger. The wedding reception was winding down as Sarah and Marcus prepared to leave. Their guests lined up outside the venue, holding sparklers that lit up the evening sky. Sarah sat in the driver's seat of their adapted van, still wearing her beautiful wedding dress, while Marcus transferred himself into the passenger seat using the special lift system. "Ready to go home, Mrs. Thompson?" Marcus asked with a smile that seemed different, almost nervous, which was unusual for him. Sarah noticed his hands fidgeting with something in his jacket pocket. As they drove through the city streets of Chicago, the lights from buildings and street lamps created a magical glow. Sarah couldn't stop smiling, occasionally glancing at her wedding ring that sparkled under the passing lights. The day had been perfect, but she sensed that Marcus had something on his mind. "Could you pull over at Wellington Point?" Marcus asked as they approached the scenic lookout spot where they had shared many special moments during their dating days. "I know it's late, but I want to show you something." Sarah steered the van into the empty parking lot overlooking the city lights reflecting on Lake Michigan. The spot was peaceful at this hour, with only the sound of gentle waves in the distance. "Is everything okay?" Sarah asked, turning to face her new husband. "You've seemed a bit distracted since we left the reception." Marcus took a deep breath. "Sarah, do you remember 6 months ago when I had to travel to Boston for what I said was a family emergency?" She nodded, recalling how worried she'd been when he made that sudden trip. "You said your aunt was sick." "I wasn't entirely honest with you," Marcus said, pulling out a folder from his jacket. "I wasn't visiting my aunt. I was meeting with a team of doctors at Boston Medical Center." Sarah's heart started beating faster. "Doctors? Marcus, are you sick?" He quickly shook his head. No, nothing like that. Actually, it's quite the opposite." He opened the folder and handed her a document. "I was accepted into an experimental medical program. They're testing a new treatment for spinal cord injuries." Sarah's hands trembled as she read the medical documents under the dim car light. The papers described a revolutionary treatment combining stem cell therapy with new electronic stimulation technology. "For the past 6 months," Marcus continued, his voice filled with emotion, "I've been receiving preliminary treatments. That's why I had to make several business trips to Boston. I didn't want to tell you until I was sure there was real hope." "Marcus," Sarah whispered, her eyes filling with tears. "Are you saying?" He reached down and touched his leg. "Last week, for the first time since my accident, I felt something. It was just a slight tingling sensation, but the doctors say it's a promising sign. They believe with continued treatment, there's a real possibility I might regain some function in my legs." Sarah covered her mouth with her hands, overwhelmed by the news. "But why didn't you tell me sooner? We could have faced this together." Marcus gently took her hands in his. "I needed you to marry me for who I am right now, not for who I might become. I didn't want this possibility to influence your decision. I wanted our wedding day to be about our love, exactly as we are." Tears rolled down Sarah's cheeks as she leaned over to hug him tightly. "I would have married you no matter what. You know that, right?" "I know," he smiled, wiping away her tears. "But now, as my wife, I want you to be part of this journey. The doctors say the next phase of treatment starts next month. There are no guarantees, but we'll face it together." Sarah finished his sentence. She looked at the city lights sparkling before them, then back at her husband. Just like we'll face everything else in life, together. Marcus pulled her close for a kiss. I have to warn you, the treatment will be challenging. There will be good days and bad days. Sarah smiled through her tears. And I'll be there for all of them. That's what I promised today, remember? In sickness and in health, in good times and bad. As they sat there in their wedding clothes, holding each other and looking out over the city where their love story began, both knew that whether the treatment worked or not, their bond would only grow stronger. The biggest surprise of Sarah's life wasn't just about the possibility of Marcus walking again. It was about the depth of trust, hope, and love they shared. The next morning, Sarah woke up early in their new home, her mind still processing everything she had learned the night before. She found Marcus already awake in his home office, surrounded by medical documents and treatment schedules. I couldn't sleep, he admitted when he saw her. I've been organizing everything to show you. There's so much I haven't told you about the treatment. Sarah pulled up a chair next to him, still wearing her comfortable pajamas. Tell me everything, she said, taking his hand in hers. Marcus began explaining how he had first learned about the program. His doctor had called him 6 months ago about a new medical trial at Boston Medical Center. They were looking for patients with specific types of spinal cord injuries, and Marcus was a perfect candidate. The first time I went, Marcus said, showing Sarah pictures of the medical center, they did lots of tests. They said my injury was exactly what they were looking for because the damage wasn't complete. Some nerve pathways were still intact, just dormant. Sarah looked at the complex medical diagrams, her nurse's training helping her understand the technical details. The treatment combined several new technologies: stem cell therapy to repair damaged nerve tissue, electronic stimulation to wake up dormant nerve pathways, and a new type of physical therapy using robotic assistance. Last week, during my final pre-wedding treatment, Marcus continued, his voice excited, I felt something amazing. The doctors were doing their usual stimulation session, and suddenly, I felt a tingling in my right toe. At first, I thought I was imagining it. He showed Sarah a video on his phone. In it, a doctor was working with Marcus's foot, and Marcus's face suddenly lit up with surprise and joy. Sarah felt tears forming in her eyes as she watched the moment he felt sensation for the first time in 3 years. Why didn't you tell me right away? She asked softly, though she was beginning to understand his reasons better. Marcus turned his wheelchair to face her directly. I've seen too many people pin all their hopes on new treatments, only to be disappointed. I didn't want our wedding to be about medical possibilities. I wanted it to be about us, about our love, exactly as we are right now. Sarah stood up and hugged him tight. You amazing, thoughtful man, but you don't have to protect me from disappointment. We're partners now, remember? As they spent the morning going through all the documentation, Marcus shared the treatment schedule for the next 6 months. It would involve weekly trips to Boston, intense physical therapy sessions, and lots of uncertainty. The doctors say we should be cautiously optimistic, Marcus explained. They've seen promising results in other patients, but every case is different. Some people regain significant function, others only get partial sensation back. Sarah's medical knowledge helped her ask important questions about the treatment. She suggested ways to coordinate his therapy sessions with her work schedule at the hospital, already thinking about how they could face this challenge together. I've been thinking, she said, pulling out her phone's calendar. I have some vacation days saved up. I could come with you to Boston for the first few treatments. Marcus looked at her with gratitude. You do that? Of course. That's what marriage is about, she smiled. Besides, I want to meet these doctors and understand everything they're doing, both as your wife and as a medical professional. They spent the rest of the morning making plans, marking important dates on their calendar, and discussing how to tell their families. Sarah's mother would probably cry happy tears, while Marcus's parents, who had known about the treatment, would be relieved to finally share the secret with everyone. You know, Sarah said as they finished organizing everything, whether this treatment works completely, partially, or not at all, it doesn't change how I feel about you. You're still the amazing man I fell in love with in room 405. Marcus pulled her onto his lap, a familiar gesture that now held new meaning. And you're still the incredible woman who saw past my wheelchair and into my heart. Now we just have a new adventure to face together. As they sat there, Surrounded by medical documents and treatment plans, both felt a mix of excitement and nervousness about the journey ahead. But more than anything, they felt grateful to be facing it together, their love growing stronger with each new challenge. 6 months after their wedding day, Sarah and Marcus sat in the waiting room of Boston Medical Center. It was time for Marcus's final evaluation of the first phase of treatment. The past months had been filled with weekly flights to Boston, countless therapy sessions, and moments of both progress and setbacks. Nervous? Sarah asked, squeezing his hand. She had used most of her vacation days to accompany him to these appointments, learning every detail of his treatment and becoming his biggest cheerleader. A little, Marcus admitted, but having you here makes everything easier. The journey hadn't been easy. There were days when the treatment seemed to work miracles, like the afternoon when Marcus first managed to wiggle his toes on command, causing both him and Sarah to cry with joy. Then there were harder days, when the pain from therapy felt overwhelming, or when progress seemed to stop completely. Dr. Wilson, the head of the medical program, called them into her office. The walls were covered with diagrams of the spine and nervous system, and on her desk sat Marcus's thick medical file. "Well, Mr. and Mrs. Thompson," she said with a warm smile, "I have to say, your dedication to this program has been remarkable. Marcus, your commitment to the therapy sessions, and Sarah, your support and medical insights have made you one of our most successful cases." She pulled up some before and after scans on her computer screen. As you can see, the combination of stem cell therapy and electronic stimulation has helped rebuild many of the neural pathways in your lower spine. The sensation you've regained in your legs is just the beginning. Marcus leaned forward in his wheelchair. "What does this mean for the future?" With continued therapy, Dr. Wilson explained, "We believe you could regain significant function in your legs. You might not run a marathon, but walking with assistance is a very real possibility within the next year." Sarah wiped happy tears from her eyes as Dr. Wilson continued explaining the next phase of treatment. They would need to continue the therapy sessions, but many could now be done at a hospital in Chicago, with monthly checkups in Boston. Later that evening, in their hotel room, Marcus and Sarah celebrated the good news by ordering room service and video calling their families. Both sets of parents cried when they heard the doctor's positive report. "You know what this means?" Marcus said after they ended the calls. "We'll have to renovate the house again. All those accessibility modifications we made might not be necessary forever." Sarah shook her head with a smile. "Let's keep them. They'll remind us of our journey, and besides, they might help other people who visit us. Your experiences have already inspired so many others." She was right. During their months of treatment, Marcus had started a blog sharing their story. It had gained thousands of followers, especially other couples facing similar challenges. Their love story had become a beacon of hope, showing that disabilities didn't define relationships. Marcus pulled Sarah close. "I couldn't have done any of this without you. When I first met you in room 405, I never imagined life could be this good." "And just think," Sarah said, "this is only the beginning of our story. We have so many more chapters to write together." They spent the rest of the evening planning their future. Marcus talked about developing new technology to help others with spinal cord injuries, inspired by his own journey. Sarah shared her ideas about starting a support group for couples navigating similar challenges. As they looked out their hotel window at the Boston skyline, they reflected on how far they had come. From their first meeting in the hospital, through the challenges of dating, their beautiful wedding, and now this medical journey, every step had made their love stronger. "Whatever happens next," Sarah said, resting her head on Marcus's shoulder, "we'll face it together. Whether you walk again or stay in your chair, whether we have easy days or hard ones, my love for you will never change." Marcus smiled, thinking about how their story had unfolded. "You know what the real miracle is?" he asked. "It's not the medical treatment or the possibility of walking again. It's finding someone who loves you completely, exactly as you are, while still believing in everything you can become." As the sun set over Boston, casting a golden glow through their window, both Sarah and Marcus knew that their greatest adventure was just beginning. Their story had become more than just a tale of love overcoming obstacles. It was proof that when two hearts truly connect, anything is possible.